Collaboration, how we talk about it, we read about ideas for it, but how do we really make it happen? And so our goal is to talk about the ideas, to talk about improving communication, but really bring it down to the practical level. What can we do today? What can we do tomorrow? And one of the reasons I love having Ava Abramowitz with us today is that she is that thinker. She thinks at the high level, and then she really knows how to make things practical and usable. And she has sat in every seat we discussed last night at dinner at the table, and she'll talk a little bit about herself and her role in the industry and what it's been. She's really has always been and continues to be a rock star. So we'll begin our journey in a moment, but first it is always my pleasure to thank the people who helped make this program a reality. So first, Ava, here as our speaker today. Thank you to Whiting Turner. They're our panel sponsor. Thank you to E2, which is our reception sponsor, and you'll be enjoying both of those on the 15th. Thank you especially this morning to Demio for such a wonderful breakfast, and to AP Construction for keeping us caffeinated. Thank you so much. I'm going to skip over that. Okay, we have a student sponsor, and someday I will get those students out of bed before 10 in the morning to actually show up to one of our early programs. But they'll have opportunity to see the video at the Construction Institute Student Organization at the University of Hartford, so they will have access to the program in that way. Thank you to Antonazzi Associates, one of our underwriters, and Fuss & O'Neill as an underwriter. We are privileged to have many collaborating sponsors. These are organizations that we work with on a regular basis. We support their work. They support our work. They include ABC of Connecticut, AIA Connecticut, Connecticut Concrete Association, the Connecticut Ready Mix Concrete Association, and the Construction Users Roundtable, of which we are the New England Council, SMPS Connecticut, and always thank you to our media sponsor, High Profile. We have wonderful annual sponsors who cover all of our programs. These include Milo Tango, Interstate Electrical Services, IMTL, Tucker Mechanical, and Pratt & Whitney. So thank you to everyone for that. Now, thanks to the incredible planning team that put this program together. Jim Cecil here, raise your hand. Caitlin Doberful is in California, so she's not able to join us in person today. Mike Ailes, Antonazzi's in the house. Paul, can you raise your hand? Mike Ailes from Antonazzi is part of our planning committee. Tiffany from Fuss & O'Neill is on maternity leave, so we will not be seeing her today because she didn't think she could keep that baby quiet the whole time. And the wonderful, ever wonderful Tony Messina from Whiting Turner. Tony, hands up. It's just been a group that's been an incredible pleasure to work with, and they've really put together a fantastic program for you. We are going to be looking at collaboration from different perspectives over the course of this program. And Ava, as you know, if you've checked your program, is coming back to do a reflective practice on some of the things that we'll be talking about today. So this is the agenda for upcoming sessions, and we're almost at the end. Oh, here. For those of you who want CCM recertification points or AIA credit, you need to check in with the folks at the desk in front who will take down your information and make sure that happens. A couple of other housekeeping items. Please silence your cell phones. I have not done that yet myself, but I will do as soon as I sit down, because there's nothing more distracting than having those rings and pings in the middle of a presentation. And that is the end of my remarks. I want to introduce Ava. I would take up the entire morning and beyond. She would miss her plane if I told you all of the things that she has done that I have learned from her. I've known Ava for more than a decade now. And she's one of my mentors. She's a construction lawyer. She's trained as an architect.
No.
Oh, I thought you were. Okay,
Just
never
make
mind.
believe.
Take that part out. Skip that part, Molly. She's trained as a lawyer. She's worked for the AIA. That's where we get that connection. Okay. She's been a prosecutor. She's a professor. She is, most importantly, an incredible student of behavior and communications behavior. She is a brilliant negotiator. She teaches negotiation, and I have to hold up your book. Sorry. The Architect's Essentials of Negotiation, now in its second edition. But this is one of the books on my shelf, and it should be on everyone's shelf. It's really an incredible resource.
It doesn't hurt to read it, too.
So Ava is, I'm happy to say, an inspiration, a mentor, and a friend.
Thank you very much. If you're going to talk about mentors, she's mine. I want to be her when I grow up. It's not on my agenda, and I'm loath to start this way, but for anyone who is watching this program, you have an opportunity to meet people if you show up alive, to meet people who could hire you, who could mentor you, who could work with you, and you're missing that opportunity. And as Nancy said, I'm her mentor and she's my mentor. You can't get through life alone. It's too hard. You need people. And very often in life, it's not what you know, it's who you know. And don't miss out on the opportunity. I hope to see you all come the next time because it'll make a difference in your life. And for all of you who are here, when there's a young person, make sure they sit next to you and make yourself a promise to help them out. So with that, I have one other thing to say. I love being interrupted. If you have a question, just raise your hand. But if it's truly offensive, raise 2 hands so I don't miss it. Okay? You ready? Okay. Let me give you a little bit of background. I've worked on the Hill, I've worked for the mayor, I've done all kinds of things. I could not hold the job. And my last time as a prosecutor, I had an enormous fight with a judge. And I went upstairs, I was just brilliantly angry, because I was right and he was wrong, of course. And I had a phone call and someone said, how would you like to work as Deputy General Counsel of the AIA? And I said, I would love to. And he said, we'll meet the General Counsel at 5 o'clock. I said, great. He said, any questions? I said, just one. He said, what? And I said, what does AIA stand for? And that is how I became Deputy General Counsel of the American Institute of Architects. And at that time, there was a major crisis in the insurance world. For any of you who are as old as I am, you might remember the 80s and what everybody was going through and losing insurance, and claims were out of sight and the premiums were out of sight. It was just a terrible time. And I realized that a lot of people were afraid of the law, and that if I could start writing in plain English about the law and how to go about using it, as opposed to in lawyer English, that's the difference, that maybe people would start decreasing their anxiety level about what was going on. And as a result of that, CNA Schinnerer, which at that time insured 80% of the architects and engineers in the country, brought me over to do the same kind of stuff I was doing at the AIA. As a result, I wrote this book in which, with the claims data that Schinnerer had, I thought I had a story to tell. So I'm going to tell it to you today. And that is that you have far more control over your practices, over your success rates, over your claims rates, over your enjoying life rates, if you add front-end alignment as a stage. It ain't there, and so we'll talk about why it's not there, how to put it there, and how to use it, okay? All right? And if you can't hear me, raise 3 hands. Typical design and construction contracts tell you a lot about design and construction. And all of it is wrong. Are you ready? It tells you, one, only two parties are involved. Now you know, beyond a venture, that there are gillions of people who are involved in constructing something. And none of them have read the contract. You have, if you signed it. The other person who signed it has, but probably nobody else. So its usefulness is limited. All in favor of agreeing with me, say aye. Aye. All opposed? I just want to know about the crowd. Two, it says that these two, and only these two people can depend upon the contract. There is no third-party beneficiary to anything in the contract. You make a promise with this person, they make a promise with you. The person who's going to rely on those two promises doesn't know about those two promises and has no right to rely on those two promises. Isn't that correct? All in favor? No one is owed a duty under the contract except the two people who signed the contract. That's absolutely absurd. Everyone is. I won't go there, but I will go to the next plus one. The contract will prove its value if you are defendable or otherwise insulated from liability when something goes wrong, and something will go wrong. In other words, it is a piece of paper intended to defend you if something goes wrong. And my whole attitude about construction is, why spend your time that way when you could spend your time preventing anything from going wrong? And that's where I come to the table. When I married Neil, I was really deeply depressed. I had moved from the city to his farm, and being surrounded by trees as opposed to buildings, being surrounded by peace and quiet as opposed to noise, being surrounded by nobody as opposed to everybody was deeply depressing to me. In fact, he would say to everyone, he would take her into the city once a month so she could smell the pollution and calm herself down. So he said to me, you know, on this farm, there are a slew of buildings that need renovation. Why don't you renovate each and every one of them? I said, I would love to. And I got going. And the country folk taught me an awful lot about what I'm going to share with you, because everything we did was done before anything was done. In other words, it takes 10 cents to make a eraser on a construction document. It takes hundreds of thousands of dollars to correct a problem in the real world. So, here it goes. These are the top 10 claim starters. Now let me give you a little bit of history here. When I worked at Schinnerer, I sweet-talked the president in hiring David Haviland, who then was dean at RPI, to do an analysis of our claims. I mean, we had most of the market. We had a slew of people who had been insured with us continuously for 10 years during recession, during good times and bad times, everywhere in between times. We had people who had no claims whatsoever. We had people who had so many claims we couldn't count them. And he agreed. He thought it would be fun. So David created 158 causes of claims or preventatives of claims, and he sent it out to scores upon scores of people, architects, engineers, AE firms, firms with no claims whatsoever, firms with why are we still insuring them claims. And this is what they reported to us. And when I go through them, I want you to ask on each and every one of them, when would I be able to discover this as a claim starter? Before I sign the contract, after I sign the contract, or after the project was done? Okay? Ask that, because I'm going to ask you later. One, that sites and responsibilities were not clear and not coordinated. That differences between the client and you, or and anybody, were not resolved. That the construction schedule, the budget were not appropriate to scope, couldn't possibly be accomplished. The client project staff was inexperienced. The project was accepted without uncompensated risks. Not enough site observations. Client had difficulty making decisions. Key issues were resolved after the agreement was signed. Firm had high professional turnover rate, and consultant staff was not very experienced. That's the top 10, 5 on each side. How many of them could be discovered before you started the project? Kinda. Kinda. And when I sat and realized that, I went, why are they discovered only after the project starts? They're not addressed in the contract. So if you don't address them, they ain't going to be addressed, and you're going to suffer the consequences. And then I sat there and went, duh. The AIA should create a new contract that talks about partnering, that talks about all these kinds of things. It should be a marketing contract so that you prove your value during the course of the discussion, and that somehow all of these issues could become claims preventers. You ready? Gas yourself again. How many of them before, during, or after signing the contract? Site responsibility, clear and coordinated. Projects with uncompensated risks turned down. CCA contracts, services included in the contract, the project staff is experienced. The firm is substantially experienced with the project type. Scope, schedule, and budget defined at outset. The project manager is experienced in managing projects. Client difficulties are resolved. Firm's values orientation is stable over time, and the client representative is experienced. How many of these can be discovered before? All of them. Even you could even find out if the client has trouble making decisions and has trouble addressing them, bringing them up and everything. Because if you use the contracting process as a way of meeting the person as opposed to securing your services, you can have a totally different conversation. And so this is all critical to all of you. How many of you knew it before I told you? Come on, raise your hands. So you all learn by being burnt. And there's no reason to be burnt in design and construction. It is predictable. In fact, in my book, I wrote a whole thing on what you can warrant. I love this chapter. You ready? I'll just read you the first one. Something unexpected will happen at some time that could delay the project. I don't know what it will be. I don't know when it will happen, and I don't know why it will happen. But I warrant it will happen. Something unexpected will happen at some time that can make the project cost more. I don't know why that something is going to happen either. Nor do I know when it will happen or why it will happen. But I can warrant it will happen. And I'll do one more. While the project is being designed, I have limited insight into the materials market. When the project is ready to be bid, I have no control over the materials market. All these things you can guarantee. And in fact, once I got started on renovating houses on the farm, I learned very quickly that all of this is a secret to most clients. They don't know, and worse than that, you don't tell them. So when it happens, oh, here's my other one, the last one. I warrant you will get angry at me sometime about something. Again, I don't know why or when, but I do know you. The sooner you tell me you are mad, the better it'll be for the project. How many of you tell me that? It's a secret. And the reason I know that this is important is my first non-farm job I got, the senator called up and said, do you write this book? And I said, yes. He said, will you put my project together? And I said, let me meet you. And we talked and talked and talked. And finally he said, will you do it? And I said, well, let me tell you what I'm hearing. And I told him what he had told me. He said, you've got it. And I said, I'd be pleased to do the project. These don't have to be secrets. If a client experience is critical to the success of your project, why wouldn't you at least make up their experience level by telling them this stuff, by sharing this stuff with them? And so my whole point is you add a front-end alignment section to your contract, you can work out most of your problems before. I mean, God now has made renderings so people who can't visualize can see. There are so many tools available to you in this age that were not available when I was working on projects ages ago, that will help the owner visualize the world as you see it and be able to communicate with you what they like, what they don't like, and why. It takes 10 seconds, just a little bit of an eraser to fix something up. Do it before you get going. So that's the whole purpose of front-end alignment. So you can leave now. Oops, I'll try it this way. Notice what's missing on the list. You have to have a contract. It's not on the list anywhere. How many of you are lawyers? None of you? Just you? You could sit there and go, no contract. You can do a project without a contract if you have front-end alignment. I'm not suggesting you do it. I'm just saying that no one viewed the contract as a preventer or as a cause. And the reason is no one reads the contract until something's gone wrong, and then they want to know what their rights are. So, you have to have a strong contract that insulates you from liability, makes you defendable at trial, gives you a way out. That is totally contrary to why you were hired in the first place. You weren't hired to produce a contract. You were hired to solve a problem that required a building or a road or this or that. That was the reason you were hired, not to get a contract. No one gets an A in contracts. And so all the lawyers, were there any lawyers here besides you and me, I would say you don't succeed if you have a signed contract. You succeed if your client prevails. I don't mean prevails because that's a legal term. If your client succeeds and his client succeeds under the contract. And that's what's important, success. So, good clients, consultants bring value and their value exceeds its cost. That's rule number one. The person has to sit there and go, wow, I'm so glad I hired you. I can't wait to do this again. That is the mark in my book of success. What can you provide that exceeds cost? Noodle it through. You've got to know this.
Desired outcomes.
You got it. You build success into a client's projects. Absolutely. And so many of people are brought up in schools, and please, I was on the board of the National Architectural Accrediting Board. I was on the board of the National Council of Architecture Registration Boards. I will tell you, visiting schools after schools after school, and my information may be dated, because it was a long time ago before most of you were born. You gotta laugh at my jokes or go home. People are brought up thinking that the client is out there to make sure that their project doesn't look the way they want it to. Because either they're high designers or they know everything there is to know about construction, and the client knows nothing of value other than what their needs are, which you haven't discovered because you focused on the contract. So, how? And this is it. Help the client manage the risks of design and construction. If you think for a second what a client is doing is they are buying a pig in a poke. They have no idea at all what it's going to look like, how it's going to serve, what problems they're going to be in their head. They have placed all their trust in you, and they don't know you, and you haven't discussed all their risks with them. Why they put their trust in you without you discussing their risks with them is beyond me. I don't get it. And yet clients do it all the time. And why it's so critical to you is that 60% of the claims against architects and engineers are brought by their clients. And when you realize that all of them are preventable, you're missing something. And it's an opportunity to have no claims at all. So, what's the problem? Well, I want to tell you the number one problem is clients. They put trust in you without asking the right questions. So for example, on my most recent project, which I'm gonna tell you about, I don't believe in competitive bidding. I hired my architects, who I've done lots of projects with, and we've gone through good, bad times, and I knew exactly what it was gonna be like to work with them, and sure enough, it was different. But we had a basic core of understanding on scope, on excellence, on all kinds of stuff. But they had become real architects over the 20 years that we've been working together. And I was assigned a project architect as opposed to working with them, and it was really hard on me. To go to show you that little things matter. Little things matter. And I talked to the architect about it. He apologized for growing up and becoming a real, honest-to-goodness architect, and I love him dearly and would hire him again and again and again. But clients sit passively through the whole process and only speak up when they're mad. I have no data on that. I just basically have a lot of stories on that and a lot of claim history. Sure, claim history. I've never had a claim on any project I've ever done, and I've done 27. Smaller than any that you've done, maybe too small to even hit your Richter scale, but nevertheless they were big to me. So, clients need to tell you what success means to them. I mean, one client once said to me, architects don't get it, they think I want a building. No, I need a building to solve a problem, and they never ask me about the problem. And you've got to start asking about the problem, because the client won't know to tell you. Not unless you ask. So, clients have to have values and have to communicate them. They have to learn how to ask questions, and they have to learn how to listen. And that came as a result of me serving as an owner's rep, along with a client who had read my book and asked me to serve as his rep. And we're sitting in a meeting, and everyone has come to an agreement, and I said, stop, you don't have an agreement. I can't remember what the issue was, but I said, contractor, you hear this issue as A, B, and C. Do I have it right? And he goes, yes. Architect, you hear this issue as D, E, and F. Same word, but you hear it as D, E, and F. Do I have it right? And he said, yes. And I said, an owner, same word, you hear it as G, H, and I. And they all went, yeah. I said, there's no agreement here. None. So they got upset, and I said, get upset. This is an opportunity for each of you to convey what's important to you, so that you can all come to a shared understanding of what's at risk, what's at issue, and how you want to deal with it. So, define success.
Eva?
Yeah.
So how do you teach the client to ask questions, because they don't know what to ask?
You ask questions.
You ask for them.
Yeah, you ask questions for them. So, at one time on this project that I was doing, I asked that the intern architect do something, because I love working with kids. I've taught for 20 years, and I love working with young people. And he came to the meeting, and it was awful what he had done. Okay? It was all on AC. And all of you know that any movement of air or water through the building is a claim waiting to happen. And I spoke long with the sub-consultant on air conditioning and with the contractor, superintendent, and everybody. So all sitting around, and everyone was prepared. And the contractor said, the HVAC contractor said, wow, this is interesting, what you've done. Let me tell you how I view the problem. Didn't criticize anything. Just talked through how he saw the problem and what the building was going to require him to do, and he didn't know how to do it. And the kid said, well, what would you need? And they worked it out, and he had an entire lesson in HVAC without anyone teaching him. They just kind of talked as peers. And that is what is missing so often. The respect of one party to the other party as peers, with each of us with different training, each of us with different understanding, and each of us with different history. And instead of respecting all those differences, some people take umbrage at those differences. I know you don't, I'm smart, you're not. So, this is how I define success. Number one is no injuries. And I am absolutely clear about that. I say to the contractor, no one has ever been injured on any of my 27 projects. If someone is injured in this project, I won't know how to deal with it. No injuries. Time doesn't trump injuries. Money doesn't trump in, nothing trumps injuries. And I tell the people who are working there, más importante a mí, most important to me, is that you're safe on this project. 2, and 3, no claims. And that means I have a very clear rule. It is a 24-hour rule. If something is wrong, you have 24 hours to tell me. I will never accuse you of negligence. I don't give a damn about negligence. I just want to cure the problem. 48 hours is negligence per se. You speak up right away if something is going wrong in the project or something could go wrong in the project that is foreseeable and stoppable now. And the net effect of it is we have a Wednesday meeting. All problems of that week are brought up. If we need people, consultants, sub-consultants, subcontractors, material men, anybody to solve the problem, we invite everybody to the meeting and we resolve it there before it ever becomes a problem. So, 3, I want everyone to be proud of their work. I want everyone to be so happy with what they do because at the end we have a signing party in which everybody who worked on the project signs on a board and we laminate it or do whatever they do so that it's there for everybody to see in 50 years. And all their family comes. I want you to know in terms of quality control, that signing party is the best quality control you could possibly have because everyone works so hard on a building and they feel that nobody notices and nobody cares. In this way, everybody can notice this and everybody cares. Then, I'm pleased with both the process and the result. And to me, the process of everyone working together, everyone having fun, everyone being at their best is as important to me as the result. Because if I have that, I'm going to have a great result. It's just not a question. And last, the community is content with it. You know, I live in an area where the community walks through the building all the time when we're not there and comments on it and tells me on it. And the fact that they all are enjoying the process as much as the builders are, as much as I am, gives me an enormous amount of joy. So these are my values. And when I talk about community content with the addition, in my view, I have a 50-year premise. This building will last 50 years. So if you're saying, why isn't cost there? Because cost divided by 50 isn't that high. Cost divided by 1 may be out of sight, but over 50, it's not that high. To me, what is important is maintenance, because I have to maintain it, and that's an annual, oh please, let me tell you stories. So, have values. Safety first, quality both in design and craftsmanship, scope and stewardship. 50 years, my job is to build a building that will last and people will all be happy that it's there. You want to know what your people's values are. I sent my slides to a friend of mine and I said, I don't want to be blown out of water. You do high-end, major 50 million, 60 million, 100 million public, whatever. I don't want to be blindsided by questions. So would you crit my slides? And he wrote back and he said, I'm now in an arbitration where the developer wanted it cheaper, then cheaper, then cheaper, then cheaper. Instead of getting the A team of contractors, B team of contractors, C team of contractors, they went down to the D team of contractors, and I'm now in my 3rd month of arbitration. You've got to know their values, because if their values are inconsistent with yours, you don't want that contract. I was at Chinnerer and I said to someone, please don't take this contract. They're holding you to the contractor standard of care. You're an architect. You can't do that. You have a different standard of care. And he said, I want the contract. I want it really bad. I said, all right, then say that you want 3 months between your contract documents and acceptance by the owner for the contractor to review them to make sure that they are consistent with the contractor's standard of care. Because then you have 3 months to correct them. Oh, they'll never let me do that. Please, please, please ask them for it. They said no. All right, don't take the contract. Took the contract. $5 million later, he called them and said, I should have listened to you. So, owners have to learn how to ask the hard questions and learn how to listen. So do all of you. So do all of you. You have to be able to say to an owner, I know what you said is this and this and this and this. Yes. Let me tell you how I'm hearing it. And then share your experience, your knowledge base, your whatever. Or ask questions. Well, if it ends up costing this much, are you still going to be interested in doing it that way? And if I find out this and this and this, are you still, let them withdraw by giving them questions through, giving them information through questions. Give everyone space so when they realize they're wrong, instead of being humiliated by it, they can just kind of step back and say, oh, I didn't know that. What would you suggest? Make everything a coaching experience, so to speak. And not a teaching experience, but a coaching experience. So, the old thinking, the way you were all brought up, maybe even you young people here, was the owners in the middle, in their silo, contractors in their silo, architects in their silo. Come on. Everyone is in a silo. And they work in the silos. But in a book called Getting Partnering Right, which I have at the end as one of the things you may want to read, they found out that there is more money made or lost between the silos than within the company. And that it's the silos that cause claims, and it's the silos that make something affordable. So, I'm not talking about the silos, I'm talking about the space in between the silos that make claims. And what works now is think of yourself as one company. That there's the owner who here, there's the division of architecture, the division of construction, and the division of this, and the division of that. And as one company, what should we do? Because that's where your savings are going to be made, and that's where your claims are going to be prevented. Does this make sense? Anyone disagree? No two-handed questions? So, that's the secret sauce. Get everyone involved. The earlier, the better. You know, I said to the architect, you know me, you know my value system. Who should I use? And he said, only Groover and Kruger. I've worked with lots of contractors. The only one you put up to do was Groover and Kruger. So I met Chip Groover, and I asked him some questions. His answers were wise and wonderful. He asked me some questions, great questions, and I said, you're it. And then the next time I met him, he said, how many people did you complete this project? And I said, I don't believe in competitive bidding. He said, excuse me? I said, competitive bidding induces people to compete on money because they don't know how to compete on anything else. And money is an investment. It's not a cost. It's what's going to make this project work. And I just don't want to skimp on my investment. I want the project I want. And I realize I have to pay for it. That's my value system. That's why people love working for me. I pay within 24 hours. Alternatively, those people who work for me know that I'm a total pain in the neck. Has to be symmetry on everything. Things have to be absolutely level. I mean, please. No one. And make sure they work together to manage the risks inherent, absolutely inherent, in creating something for the first time ever that has never been created before and will never be created again. When I worked at Schinnerer, I used to say, if someone asks for a profession, say, yes, you can do it. But first you want to build the building, and then you want to change it, make sure that it's better, rip it down, build it again, rip it down, build it again, rip it down, build it again, and on the fifth time you can guarantee perfection. And they'd look and say, no one will pay for that. And I said, then stop promising it. You can't achieve it. So, this is what I write into contracts. I'll read it to you because the writing is small. Owner, contractor, and architect agree that this is a partnered contract. with the mutual goals of constructing a quality project and preventing claims and disputes. The parties agree that the contract shall be performed with an environment of mutual trust, commitment to shared goals, open communication, and dedication to addressing problems and issues as soon as they are discovered. To further this mutual goal, the parties agree to meeting weekly on Wednesdays to address all ongoing coordination, design, progress, and construction issues in order to keep the project on track. All problems or concerns that arise shall be brought to the other party's attention within 24 hours of discovery and addressed as soon as possible, even if doing so requires an immediate meeting in advance of the Wednesday meeting. This is the talkiest project in the world. And as I said to them the first time there was an issue and they were all being nice, excuse me, collaboration does not mean being nice. Collaboration means being open, transparent, and clear in what you're saying and what you're seeing. So stop being nice to each other. Let's focus on the problem. Not on each other, but focus on the problem. It takes all of one time for them to realize that the owner really means it. And then live up to that. The first time a problem comes up and someone says, that's my fault, I stop it. I don't care whose fault it is. Bad things are going to happen. What I care is who's going to correct it and how we're going to correct it. And when we're going to correct it. Because claims prevention is my issue. Everybody makes mistakes. Bad things happen. It's in my warrant list. So, as I say to the owner, the one thing you have to learn is how to suck it up, because bad things happen. And if something goes contrary to you, learn how to say, well, paint it pink, and go on from there. So everybody knows when I say paint it pink, I'm not a happy camper, but I can stomach it. So, this goes into everyone's contract. And everybody lives up to it. And basically, they have, I said to them all, I'm doing this presentation, here are my slides. Should I change anything? And they said, everything you said is true, everything you said is right, but the client is pivotal. I've never met a client like you. You know what's going on, you're extraordinarily tender with problems, and you make decisions. And you live up to the decisions even if they prove bad. And most owners aren't like that. And I said, then train your owner to be like that. Work with your owner, make it easy for them to be like that. So, constantly evaluating the problem. I wrote down notes on partnering, and I took them from the book, Getting Partnering Right. And one is that everyone has to be committed to value creation, the realization that 1 + 1 + 1, the 3 silos, working together makes 6, 7, or 8, and not just 3. 2, that it's an intimacy, a shared transparency about information, about problems, and that's why I have the 24-hour rule. And 3, there's a shared guidance system, by which I mean that everyone is jointly planning. Everyone has joint milestones, and they're always second-guessing where they are. How are we doing so far? Are we on track for the next one? What has to happen to make us back on track? All of it occurs in the partner meetings. All of it occurs weekly. And I said to them, can you train clients to do this? And all of them thought about it and said, yes, but it will take us a while to develop the skills. Because you don't want to lecture. You don't want to educate. You just kind of want to coach and help them along. So, is it possible? Yep. If you understand and accept, you are hired to manage risk. And if the owner understands that what they're asking you to do is inherently risky. That's your value. That's your value added. And the owner has to be willing to pay for the partnering sessions, to pay for the front-end alignment. On this most recent project, the design Rita Swartz gave is brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. But it's also unconstructible. And Brewer and Cooley realized that there are major problems. Let me tell you what the building is. My husband has a writing studio. He's a writer. On 10 acres down at the bottom of the hill. And above him is this ugly, well, I'm trying to think of what I can say without slander. And I'm having a lot of trouble. Anyway, 1990s, manufactured log cabin, kit house, which was starting to go in on itself, had bug issues all on the outside as people had, bugs had been eating it. Small little windows, and all the inside wood had turned orange. And on top of that, there's the ceiling was the floor, and there was nowhere, not possible to get any structure in there, HVAC in there, anything in there, without kind of creating please. So the first person who got divorced called up and said, "We're getting divorced, I got the house, do you want to buy it?" And I said, "Oh, we have so much property to deal with, I don't think so." Then the second person who got divorced said, "Do you want to buy it?" And I said, "No, we have so much property, I just don't think so." And the third one wised up and asked Neil in 24 hours, with no comparables, with no inspection, with no survey, with no this, with no that. We were the proud owners of that building. So that's the building that I'm talking about. It had so many problems that there were no strengths. And what we did is they did schematics, and we kept on working on the schematics, just us and the architect, until we had the schematics just the way we were willing to accept. And the only reason I was willing to accept them is because of renderings, because I know all about construction, but I can't read it, I can't visualize anything, okay? And then we called in the contractor, and we spent a year making the place constructible. Best use of my time, best use of my money, best use of everything, because the building is going up, boom, to boom, to boom, to boom, to boom, boom, boom. So, everyone has a problem solver, and everyone has information that you need to make the project success. And so, if someone is sitting there just looking like this, say, you're not speaking, but your face says there's something going on in your head. Do you want to share it with us? And the whole world opens up when someone who's a low reactor or doesn't have the confidence to speak up or isn't quite sure how he's going to be heard, speaks up and opens a new door and a new window. Make it easy for problems to surface. Make it easy for problems to be resolved. And that means commit to no surprise design, which means that if something bad is going to happen and you discover it today, tell everybody first thing. First thing. I read a paper way back in the 80s. I think that Peter Sandin wrote it, in which they had interviewed people on building failure, and on each building that had failed, somebody knew it was going to fail. But the person who knew it was going to fail was at the bottom of the food chain and said, "They went to school, I didn't. They did this, I didn't. They did this, I didn't. They must know, I don't," and didn't say anything. So we invite anyone to speak up at any time, and no one takes miss at it. People just have knowledge about things that you can't know. So, when things go wrong, just focus on making them right. That's all. So, is it expensive? Oh boy, let me tell you how expensive it is. Best investment I ever made. Always think of everything as a cost. Get them to flip their brain and think of everything as an investment. Because they're basically investing in a road, a building, a highway, a this or that that's going to last at least 50 years, if not longer. And let's see where it takes them. With front-end alignment, you have schematics phase. Front-end alignment and partnering begin right after schematics are over. So design, development, construction, merge. They absolutely merge. And there's no, or at least the way I do it, there's no bidding and negotiation phase, there's no competitive this, there's no competitive that. everybody picks the person who's best for the project. And weekly partner meetings begin, construction, contract administration, final completion. I don't believe in substantial completion. It's not done until it's done. And then there's the signing party. And everybody knows at the beginning, there's going to be a signing party. And everyone is looking forward to the signing party. I'm even given ideas on what should be on the menu. And no friend alignment. Are you ready? I had so much fun doing this. Schematics, design development, construction documents, bidding and negotiation, construction, contract administration, change orders. There are no change orders on my project. Let me tell you what a change order is. A change order is, after the decision is implemented, the owner says, I didn't want it that way. Never happens. Just never happens. Contractors have no change orders because they already understand the drawings before they get going. Architects have no change orders because they already understand the drawings before they, and no change directives. Everything is forethought as opposed to after. Substantial completion. Claims start being filed right now. Everyone hires a lawyer, legal fees start mounting, all parties prep for court. Then there's the mediation, and in a lot of mediations there's a mediator proposal, by which I mean the mediator has ruled. Damages are coughed up, everyone's exhausted, insurance costs for everybody increase, some suffer loss of reputation costs, loss of opportunity costs, and I didn't even mention going to trial, or appeal, or anything else that happens in these cases.
Or the party.
Pardon?
No party. No party.
Yep. And on top of that, when I'm at the AIA and I analyze the claims data, and I realized that the transaction costs were the primary costs that architects were paying, because most claims, if they occur the first year, the architect's probably very likely liable. But if it's the second year, it's probably the contractor, and if it's the third year, it's maintenance. But the architect is paying for transaction costs all the way through the first 3 years, whatever. And I thought, gee, if we could mediate our claims, we could reduce construction costs. So I went to Shinneram, and they thought, no. And I went to DPIC, and they thought, no. Because it was a little bit too ahead. So I said, let's create a construction mediation service. And all the architects and engineers and contractors said, no. Took a while, but now it's the norm. But I just read a recent law review that said, has mediation become a new form of arbitration? Which is basically a new form of trial. And the answer is, yeah, in a lot of places. So, instead of spending money on that, stop thinking of cost as a cost, start thinking of it as an investment, and put all the money that you could have spent on lawyers on a project and get it to be the project you want it to be. So this is what we bought. Isn't that terrific? Isn't it? It's just absolutely stuns me. And see the pictures of the birds, vultures, they're just waiting. So, we would meet anytime, any place, and these are my things to advance the project, my pictures. We met on the ground. We met, this is inside the building, where we now have not orange walls. We meet outside, and we meet in the shack. We meet anywhere in order to get problems solved, and we meet often. And we meet with anyone, everyone, to solve a problem, real or possible. So here's that. Okay, see the guy in the blue? That's Chip Groover. He is the Groover and Cooley. And I just had to have one picture of him showing up. He's wonderful. And this is all of us. And see the young man there? He is the intern architect working with the HVAC guy to try to figure out how to get air to the building. And when the drawings came back, they were perfect. Absolutely perfect. This is all of us meeting again with a different contractor trying to figure out how to handle the situation. And then this is all of us dealing with the lighting contractor, and the house is going to be a smart house. And I said to the guy from Smart House who's working with the lighting contractor to get everything done, the only problem with this building is there's one person who's going to be living here who's stupid. And so I wrote into his contract, he has to live with us for the first month or until the stupid one figures it out. And at times we struggled. Please don't think this was all fun. We struggled a lot. Here we are trying to go over something, and finally they've given me a rendering so I can at least see what they're all talking about. Here we're trying to think of different ways of solving the solution. The architect's not there, it's a pure construction thing. Here, whoops, let me go back. I mean, it's just the bottom one I put in because we're trying to decide what we should put on the logs that will look good. And if you can see the differences between all the various things that they put on the logs, my hat is off to you. I just sat there and I couldn't see anything anyway. So, but we had fun. Here they are all making fun. This one I picked because Tom is holding ePay. And we had been talking for like a half an hour, and I said, why are you holding ePay? And he said, because the owner said, would you hold this? And so we just held it. So, yes, we had fun. And here's my favorite. It is also of Tom. I kept on saying the puppy door, our dogs are too big. They'd never be able to get through that. And he did the door to prove that I was wrong. But the other reason I put it is, do you see the two stones underneath? I was talking to the masons, and I said, I so wish there was a way for the puppies to get into the puppy door that would be easy for them and comfortable. And so the masons, people at the bottom of the food chain, worked out the steps. And it's just so beautiful, and I was so proud of them and so thankful of them that I took pictures of it. But the one with Tom on it was just too good. I couldn't pass it up. So that's how we do it, and this is where it is today. And they said it will be finished in February. They haven't told me the year. But they told me it will be done in February. And so that's how the project works. My book and Neil's book. Any questions? I put into my book, oh, I hope you can find it. Please, 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 I know. Come on, I know it's in here. Can it be done on a large scale? Witness Invesco Field at Mile High, the Denver Brock studio. Innovatively designed and built 14 days earlier than scheduled, and $5.5 million under its guaranteed maximum price. To the satisfaction of the Broncos, the stadium's primary tenant, the owner, the 6-county Metropolitan Football Stadium District, the surrounding government, neighbors, and the fans. And how did they do it? And they did it this way. As one person said at the end, it was an enormous challenge to us to successfully negotiate which elements of the project were our responsibilities, which weren't. We had to think hard about value and expertise in everyone else's so we could structure the project for success. Managing the project was harder still, but we all dug in it together to pull it off. Constant communication and follow-up was key. As one person said, it was the talkiest project I've ever been on. And that's how you do it. You talk. Which is why the next time we get together, we'll talk about communication behaviors. How do you do it? Because it's hard. And it can be done. And I was so grateful to HMTV for not messing up that project, I cannot tell you. But it can be done. It just is harder, and it requires the owner to pay for it. Because no one is going to put in their time to talk without compensation. And the owner has to flip their brain from cost to investment. Because it's the only way to protect them from claims. Because everything you described is absolutely true under the way buildings are built now. But do it with fun and alignment, it doesn't have to be true. I will talk to that, okay? Invite me to speak to your government units, I'd be happy to. because they don't know this. And as one person said to me on the Hill, really, it doesn't matter how much it costs as long as it's ugly. And nobody knows how much it costs. And I sat there and I thought, everything in the government is topsy-turvy. And in wrong thinking, and they get what they pay for, which is you want it bad, you get it bad. And so it requires posting this on YouTube and sending it to your favorite senator, your favorite congressman, or whatever. I know I'm terrific. You're all sitting there going, she's clueless. First thing, as soon as it happens, you go, this is going to impact the project. And you sit and you figure out how you're going to handle it right away, all right? So, for example, on supply chain, we lucked out like you can't imagine, because the year we did our front-end alignment, we had ordered everything the year before. And so by the time it came in, we were ready for design and construction. Creative prompt, because the decisions we made the year before, brilliant, well thought out, perfectly made. Technology had changed, and so some of them were stupid, and we had to deal with that as an issue. But basically, that's how we protected us from supply chain. And supply chain can be dealt with when it happens, because people did deal with it. COVID, the same thing. You couldn't, as soon as COVID came in and as soon as we recognized that it was a catastrophe, there were various things you could require in order for everybody to protect themselves. So nothing happens today and then you discover it. It happens, and then suddenly it hits you, we have a problem. And as soon as it hits you, speak up and deal with it. No, it didn't. I painted it pink. I'm sorry, sometimes the owner has to decide whether they want to paint it pink or whether they want to make a change. And if you cost out the implications of the change, an owner can make a decision. It's their building. But by and large, we've had no change orders.
I think, change orders due to really unforeseen circumstances like COVID are different than the change orders you can avoid with front-end alignment, which are just that you didn't think it through. You didn't figure it out ahead of time. Those are the change orders you definitely can avoid if you're using front-end alignment.
And all the change orders of a contractor dealing with the designs,
Yeah.
that doesn't happen. And all the contractor problems of realizing that building the building is going to be more expensive doesn't happen. All of those things happen in front-end alignment, and they work out. And the owner has the right at some time to say, I can't afford it. At which point, I say to all my young friends who are building their homes, so 30% of the problems of the budget are owner caused, and it's usually after the design. They either didn't think it would see that way, or they went to someone's house and they come back and said, you should have seen her kitchen. She did this. And I said, so save 30% of your budget for that. And in addition, do not say to the husband, you're in charge of money, and to the wife, you're in charge of scope and quality. Work it out. Work it out collectively. And if you can't afford what you want, ask whether it can be built in stages. It may be more expensive because you're going to have to prepare a wall for whatever, but it can be done in stages if you're planning on being married more than a year. So. I mean, basically, this is sex education. Straight talk means you don't get that.
I think it's everybody's like, yeah, this would all be great. I think it's the breaking the cycle with the clients. Because we all, as providers, AEC, contractors, service providers, whatever, are like yes, this would be heaven on earth to be able to work with a client up front, really nail that scope, make sure all parties are understanding what's going on, but we need to find a better way to interrupt that thinking.
Yeah, but it's not just that. You have to work with the AIA, AEC, all the organizations that produce contracts and get them to add in the stage.
Ultimately, we'll write our own.
Pardon?
I said, ultimately, we'll write our own.
You know, I mean, I wrote the project we have, and I sent it to one of the people from the American College of Construction, and I said to her, can you fix this up? I added this stuff. And she wrote back and she said, no one signs a contract like this. And I said, I will.
Right.
And she has watched with amazement. No claims, no this, no that.
So I puzzle over how to educate owners or coach owners, right, is a much better way of looking at it. When I owned a design build firm and we were doing high-end residential design build, we didn't break ground until all of the decisions had been made. And we worked with the owners to explain to them why all of that time was going in up front. And things went very well during construction. But the other thing we did, we even went to the level of educating them about the psychology of what it's like to have your house invaded during a renovation, if it was high-end remodeling. New home construction, very different. But, you know, we renovated multiple homes of our own while we were living in them. That's like, in the beginning, these are great guys, you're gonna love having them come into your house, it's gonna be very exciting, the framing is gonna go up fast, you know, you'll see the foundation go in, the framing goes up fast, and then it's gonna seem like everything stops, right? And then once the drywall starts going up, it'll get exciting again. But by the end of the project, you're gonna hate these guys, you're gonna be sick of having them in your house, you're just gonna be thinking, I can't wait until they leave. You know, and there's a whole psychology of the process, and it exists on commercial projects too, and on school projects, and helping people understand what they are going to experience as they go through this, I think is really valuable and reduces claims and helps people understand that they need to make decisions timely.
My mother was 6 months north, and she went to Florida. And all my construction was based on her schedule because I moved into her apartment and moved out in 6 months. There's got to be a way to deal with it if you know what's going to happen. And Nancy just gave a perfect example of that. You're absolutely right. And so here are the two preventions, all right? One, every inexperienced owner has got to watch Mr. Blandings build a dream house. Have you watched it?
No.
Mr. Blandings builds a dream house with Cary Grant. Do you know who Cary Grant is?
Yes.
Black and white. Everybody has to watch it because they go through every problem you could possibly imagine. And it is the quickest and most enjoyable way of an owner learning. Two, you have to be honest with the owner about it. You have to say, the major weakness you have is you've never done this before. On the other hand, the major strength you have is you've never done this before. So if you ask the questions that you have, keep none of your questions to yourself. I can work up the loop so that you become as experienced as you need to be. And I can decrease your fear. But you have to ask questions, and we have to work together. So much of it is knowledge. You all know what an inexperienced, and I have a whole thing in my book on the problem of an inexperienced owner. And most people do a first project at some time. And so to the inexperienced owner, I mean, I always have the architect choose the contractor. Primarily because there are some people who can build. I mean, I brought in projects at more than $1,000 a square foot. and I brought in projects at $50 a square foot, and they're both beautiful. But it required a different contractor, a different mentality, a different finishings, different this, different this, different this. It can be done, but you have to consciously make decisions as to who would do this best. I mean, what taught me that, just one more story, is my late husband and I were doing our first major bathroom renovation. And so I designed it, what I wanted in it. And I went to the tile place and I came back, and it was $100,000. He looked at me and he said, "You gotta be kidding, you go back there." So I went back there and I chose the lesser thing, it's gonna be beautiful, but promise you beautiful, and it came back $70,000, and he took my hand and he said, "We're going down together, her budget is $30,000, 1 penny more, you pay for it." And they picked out a whole series of tiles, extraordinarily beautiful. You can do anything at any price point you want and have beauty. It's harder to go cheap than to go expensive.